What if one normal evening quietly opened a door that should have stayed closed? Daniel had no reason to think that Friday would be different. He left work early, loosened his tie in the car, and drove through light Seattle traffic toward Linda's house. Family dinner. Same as always. Emily had texted an hour earlier saying she would be late because of an emergency shift at the hospital. That wasn't unusual anymore. Her job came first most days. Daniel understood. Or at least he told himself he did. Linda lived in a quiet neighborhood lined with tall trees and tidy lawns. Her porch light was already on when Daniel pulled into the driveway. She opened the door before he knocked. "Daniel," she said warmly. "Come in. You must be hungry." The house smelled like roasted chicken and herbs. Soft music played somewhere in the background. Everything felt calm, almost peaceful. Too peaceful. Emily still stuck at work? Linda asked as she led him into the kitchen. "Yeah," Daniel replied. She said not to wait. Linda nodded but didn't comment. She handed him a stack of plates. "Help me set the table." They moved around the kitchen together with easy coordination. Daniel had always felt comfortable here. Linda had a steady presence. She noticed small things. Remembered details. Asked questions that mattered. "You look tired," she said gently while pouring water into glasses. Daniel forced a smile. "Just busy." She studied him for a second longer than expected. Busy doesn't usually look like that. He shrugged, trying to brush it off. But something in her tone made it hard to pretend. The table was set for 3. An empty chair waited. Daniel's phone buzzed. A message from Emily. *emergency surgery. I won't make it. Eat without me. Love you. *. He read it twice before slipping the phone back into his pocket. "She's not coming," he said quietly. Linda's face softened. "Then we won't let the food go to waste." They sat across from each other at the table. The empty chair between them felt noticeable, like a silent witness. At first, conversation stayed light. Work updates. Weather. News. But silence kept slipping in between sentences. And in those pauses, something else grew. "How are you really doing?" Linda asked suddenly. Daniel hesitated. "I'm fine." She raised an eyebrow gently. "You don't have to impress me." The words caught him off guard. He wasn't used to being seen so clearly. "It's just, busy," he repeated. But his voice lacked strength. Linda didn't push. She simply waited, and that waiting made it harder for him to stay quiet. "Emily's schedule has been crazy," he admitted. "We barely talk lately." Linda folded her hands calmly. "She works hard." "I know," Daniel said quickly. "I'm proud of her." "But," she asked softly. He exhaled. "But sometimes it feels like we're roommates. Not partners." The confession surprised even him. Linda didn't react with shock or defense. She didn't jump to protect her daughter. Instead, she nodded slowly. "Marriage can get lonely," she said. "Even when love is still there." Daniel looked up sharply. That was exactly it. Love was there. But connection felt thin. He hadn't planned to say more. But once he started, the words came easier. Long hours. Missed dinners. Short conversations before bed. The feeling of being second to everything else. Linda listened without interrupting. Her attention felt steady, focused. "You deserve to feel heard," she said quietly. The sentence landed deeper than he expected. No one had said that to him in a long time. The room felt warmer suddenly. Or maybe it was just the way she looked at him, concerned, thoughtful, present. Daniel shifted in his seat. "I shouldn't complain." "You're not complaining," Linda replied. "You're sharing." There was a difference. Dinner ended slowly. Neither rushed to clear the table. The clock ticked softly on the wall. "Would you like coffee?" Linda asked. He almost said no. He almost left, but he stayed. They moved into the living room with 2 cups of coffee. The lighting was softer there. Lamps instead of ceiling lights. Shadows danced gently against the walls. Daniel talked about his job next. The pressure to perform. The fear of not advancing fast enough. Linda asked thoughtful questions. She remembered small details he had mentioned months ago. You carry a lot quietly, she observed. Daniel felt something shift inside him. It wasn't attraction. Not yet. It was recognition. Someone noticing what he rarely showed. When he finally stood to leave, it was late. At the door, Linda paused before opening it. I'm glad you came, she said softly. So am I, he admitted. For a brief second, their eyes held. Not in a romantic way. Not inappropriate. But longer than usual. Then she touched his arm lightly. A simple gesture. Kind. Supportive. Take care of your heart, she added. The words followed him all the way home. When Daniel walked into his house, it was dark. Emily was still at the hospital. He placed his keys on the counter and stood in the quiet kitchen. He replayed the evening in his mind. The conversation. The attention. The way he felt understood. He hadn't done anything wrong. He had only talked, yet something about it felt different. He wasn't thinking about romance. He wasn't thinking about crossing lines, but he was thinking about how good it felt to be noticed, and that realization unsettled him. When Emily finally came home after midnight, exhausted and silent, Daniel hugged her tightly. She smiled weakly. Long day. I know, he whispered, but as she fell asleep beside him, Daniel stared at the ceiling, because somewhere between roasted chicken and quiet coffee, a small emotional door had opened, and he wasn't sure he had the strength to close it. How does something harmless slowly become something you have to hide? After that dinner, Daniel told himself nothing had changed. It was just a conversation. Just coffee. Just honesty. But the memory stayed with him longer than it should have. The way Linda had listened. The way she had noticed the tired look in his eyes before he said a word. Life at home moved fast but felt distant. Emily's hospital shifts grew longer. Some nights she didn't come home until past midnight. Other nights she fell asleep on the couch still wearing her scrubs. Daniel tried to be patient. He knew her job mattered. He knew people depended on her, but patience didn't erase loneliness. One Tuesday afternoon, while Daniel sat at his desk finishing emails, his phone buzzed. A message from Linda. I made too much soup again. Want to take some home? He stared at the screen for a moment longer than necessary. It wasn't strange. Family shared food all the time. Emily often told him to stop by her mom's house if he needed anything. Still, something inside him hesitated. Then he typed back, sure. I can stop by after work. The drive felt longer than usual. He told himself it was practical. He told himself he was helping. Linda opened the door with the same calm smile. Perfect timing, she said. It just finished. The house smelled warm. Familiar. Safe. He stepped inside, removing his jacket. Thanks. Emily will appreciate this. Linda nodded but didn't say much about her daughter. Instead, she asked about his day. They stood in the kitchen at first. Then they moved to the living room with 2 bowls of soup instead of 1. You don't have to rush, she said when he checked his watch. He lowered his wrist slowly. I'm not. That was the first small shift. He wasn't just picking up food anymore. He was staying. They talked about simple things at first. Work updates. Traffic. News. But like before, the conversation drifted deeper without effort. Have you told Emily how you feel? Linda asked gently. Daniel sighed. She's exhausted all the time. I don't want to add pressure. Linda studied him quietly. Holding everything inside doesn't protect a marriage. It slowly weakens it. Her words were thoughtful, not accusing. Daniel looked down at his bowl. I just miss her. Even when she's home. Linda's expression softened. That's a heavy feeling. He nodded. There was a long pause. Not uncomfortable. Just quiet. When Daniel finally left that evening, it was darker than he expected. He hadn't noticed the time passing. At home, Emily was sitting at the kitchen table reviewing paperwork. Mom said you stopped by, she said casually. Yeah, Daniel replied. She made soup. Emily smiled tiredly. She gets lonely sometimes. I'm glad you check on her. Lonely, the word stuck in his mind again. Was that what this was? Two people filling quiet spaces, days turned into weeks. Daniel found reasons to visit. A broken light fixture. A package delivered by mistake. Returning a dish each visit felt normal at first. But he began to notice how easy it was to talk to Linda. She remembered small details. She asked follow-up questions. She noticed when his mood shifted. One evening, rain poured heavily against the windows. Daniel had stopped by after work to drop off some paperwork Emily forgot. The storm grew stronger. Thunder echoed through the house. Linda lit candles when the lights flickered. The room glowed softly in warm light. It reminds me of years ago, Linda said quietly. Before life got complicated. Daniel smiled faintly. When was that? She laughed softly. I'm not sure life was ever simple. We just didn't see the cracks yet. He understood that feeling too well. The storm outside grew louder. But inside, everything felt still. You're a good man, Daniel, Linda said suddenly. He looked up, surprised. Why would you say that? Because you care deeply. And that can be rare. No one had said something like that to him in a long time. He felt a mix of appreciation and discomfort. The compliment meant more than it should have. When the rain slowed, Daniel stood quickly. I should go. Linda nodded, almost as if she had expected that. At the door, there was a pause again. Longer this time. Be careful driving, she said. He nodded and stepped into the cool night air. In the car, he gripped the steering wheel tightly. He hadn't crossed a physical line. He hadn't said anything inappropriate, but something emotional was building. At home, Emily was asleep on the couch again. A blanket half covering her. Daniel stood there watching her for a long moment. He loved her. That hadn't changed. So why did he feel divided? He covered her gently and walked into the bedroom alone. His phone buzzed softly on the nightstand. A message from Linda. Thanks for staying. It was nice not feeling alone during the storm. He stared at the words. There was nothing wrong in them, yet he didn't show the message to Emily. He placed the phone face down. That was the moment it shifted. When something small becomes something hidden, it starts to grow roots. Daniel lay awake in the dark, listening to the quiet house. He hadn't done anything wrong. But he was starting to understand how emotional lines blur slowly, not with one dramatic decision, but with many small ones. And the scariest part was this: he wasn't sure anymore if he was visiting Linda because she needed company. Or because he did. When does comfort turn into something that feels dangerously close to betrayal? Daniel told himself he had control. He believed he understood the line and would never cross it. But lines don't always move in loud, dramatic ways. Sometimes they shift quietly, step by step, until you look down and realize you are standing somewhere you never planned to be. Emily left for Chicago on a Thursday morning. A 3-day medical conference. She kissed Daniel quickly before heading to the airport, already checking emails on her phone. Call me tonight, she said. I will, he replied, but that night, she called late. She sounded tired but excited about the sessions. Daniel listened, asked questions, told her he was proud of her. After they hung up, the house felt unusually silent. An hour later, his phone buzzed. Linda *, storm coming tonight. I hate thunder. Silly, I know. Daniel stared at the message. It wasn't urgent. It wasn't dramatic, but he knew she lived alone. He knew the house felt large at night. He typed back, I can stop by for a bit. The rain started as he drove across town. By the time he reached her house, thunder rolled heavily across the sky. The porch light flickered as she opened the door. I'm glad you came, she said softly. He stepped inside, shaking rain from his jacket. The house felt different tonight. Quieter. Dimmer. They sat in the living room while rain pounded against the windows. Lightning flashed briefly, lighting up the room before fading again. This weather makes everything feel smaller, Linda said. Daniel nodded. Yeah. Like the world shrinks. She looked at him carefully. Do you ever feel like your life shrank too? The question caught him off guard. I don't know, he admitted. Sometimes I feel stuck. Like I'm standing still while everyone else moves forward. Linda didn't answer right away. She leaned back, listening. I wanted things to be different by now, he added. Closer. Lighter. With Emily, she asked gently. He hesitated, then nodded. I love her, he said quickly. That's not the issue. Love isn't always the issue, Linda replied quietly. The thunder grew louder. The lights flickered once but stayed on. Daniel felt exposed sitting there. He wasn't used to speaking so openly. But the words came easier in the dark. She's always exhausted, he continued. When she's home, she's thinking about work. When she's away, she's thinking about the next step. I don't know where I fit anymore. Linda's eyes softened. Feeling invisible is painful. He looked at her. You understand that? A small smile touched her lips. More than you think. There was something in her tone. Something unspoken. Years of sacrifice. Years of standing behind someone else's dreams. The rain kept falling. At some point, conversation slowed. Silence filled the space between them. Not awkward. Not forced. Just heavy. Daniel became aware of how close they were sitting. Not touching. Just close. You should go home, Linda said finally, her voice low, but she didn't stand up. Neither did he. The moment stretched longer than it should have. Daniel's heart pounded. Not from attraction alone. From realization, this was no longer just about soup and small talk. They were leaning on each other emotionally in ways that belonged inside his marriage. He stood abruptly. This can't keep happening, he said gently but firmly. Linda nodded, eyes glistening. I know. There was no anger in her face. Only understanding. I don't want to disrespect Emily, he continued. Or you. You haven't, she replied softly. But we are close to doing that. The honesty felt sharp but necessary. Thunder cracked loudly overhead, shaking the windows. It felt like the world itself had spoken. Daniel grabbed his jacket. At the door, he paused. I'm sorry if I blurred things. You didn't do it alone, Linda said quietly. He stepped into the rain without another word. The drive home felt longer than before. The windshield wipers moved fast, clearing water again and again, just like his mind tried to clear confusion. Back inside his house, the silence felt heavier than ever. He stood in front of the bathroom mirror and stared at himself. He hadn't cheated, he hadn't crossed a physical line, but emotionally, he had stepped closer than he ever should have, and he knew it. His phone buzzed again. A message from Emily. Miss you. Wish you were here. His chest tightened. He typed back, miss you too. He meant it, but he also felt something else, guilt, because part of him had found comfort somewhere it didn't belong. He walked into the bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed. The house felt different now. Not empty. Just clear about what had to happen. The next morning, he woke early. The storm had passed. The sky was bright and calm. He picked up his phone and typed a message to Linda. Last night shouldn't happen again. We need boundaries. The reply came minutes later. You're right. I respect that. Short. Direct. Final. Daniel exhaled slowly. He didn't feel relief. Not fully. He felt the weight of a secret that never fully happened but still mattered, because sometimes the most dangerous mistakes are not the loud ones. They are the quiet moments where you almost choose the wrong path, and Daniel knew one thing clearly now. If he didn't fix what was broken in his marriage, the next storm might not stop at conversation. What do you do when the biggest mistake in your marriage is the one that almost happened? When Emily came home from Chicago, Daniel was waiting at the airport. He hadn't done that in months. Usually, she took a cab or rideshare. But this time felt different. She walked through the arrival gate, tired but smiling. When she saw him, surprise crossed her face. You didn't have to come, she said. I wanted to, he replied. He took her bag. Their hands brushed for a second. The touch felt familiar, but fragile. On the drive home, she talked about the conference. New research. Inspiring speakers. Career opportunities. Daniel listened carefully. He asked questions. He didn't check his phone, but inside, his thoughts were heavy. That night, after dinner, they sat on the couch. No TV. No distractions. Are you okay? Emily asked suddenly. He looked at her. Why would you ask that? You've been different. More quiet. More present. He gave a small smile. Is that bad? No, she said softly. It just feels like something's on your mind. There it was. The moment he could either stay silent or be honest, Daniel took a slow breath. We've been drifting. Emily didn't argue. I know, she admitted. I feel it too. The room felt still. I felt lonely, he continued carefully. Not because I stopped loving you. But because I miss us. Emily's eyes softened. I miss us too. The words came easier after that. Long hours. Emotional distance. Missed conversations. The way they had both assumed the other was fine. I thought you didn't need me as much, Emily confessed quietly. You always seem so strong. I thought you didn't have space for me, he replied. They both sat with that truth. Daniel felt the weight of the secret pressing against his chest. He didn't describe every conversation with Linda. He didn't need to create unnecessary pain. But he chose honesty in the way that mattered most. I almost looked for comfort in the wrong place, he said carefully. Not physically. But emotionally. Emily's expression shifted. Hurt flickered in her eyes. With who? She asked. He swallowed. Your mom. Silence filled the room. For a second, Emily didn't move. Then she looked down at her hands. Did something happen? She asked quietly. No, he answered firmly. Nothing inappropriate. But we were talking too much. Leaning on each other in ways that weren't healthy. Emily closed her eyes briefly. The truth hurt. But it also mattered. Why didn't you come to me? She asked. I should have, he admitted. I was afraid you were already carrying too much. Tears formed in her eyes. You're my husband. You're not extra weight. The sentence hit him deeply. I know that now, he said softly. They sat in silence for a long time. Not angry. Not shouting. Just processing. Finally, Emily spoke again. Mom hasn't said anything. She won't, Daniel replied. We both knew it was wrong before it became worse. Emily stood and walked to the window. The city lights reflected faintly on the glass. I'm hurt, she said honestly. But I'm also tired of pretending everything is fine between us. Daniel walked closer but didn't touch her. I don't want to lose you, he said. She turned around slowly. Then let's stop losing each other in small ways. The next day, Emily visited her mother alone. Daniel didn't know what was said. He didn't ask for details. But when Emily returned home, her face was calm. She agrees boundaries were crossed, Emily said simply. She's sorry. Daniel nodded. That evening, he drove to Linda's house one last time. They stood in the kitchen where it had all started. I told Emily, he said quietly. Linda's expression didn't show anger. Only acceptance. That's good, she replied. Secrets grow when they stay hidden. I never wanted to disrespect either of you. I know, she said. But loneliness can blur judgment. There was no tension now. Just clarity. You need to choose your marriage every day, Linda added gently. Not just when it's easy. He nodded. I will. When he left, it felt final. Back at home, Daniel and Emily sat at the dining table, the same place where silence once filled the space between them. Counseling? Emily suggested. Yes, he said without hesitation. They began the following week. The sessions were uncomfortable at first. Honest conversations often are. They talked about priorities. About communication. About how ambition had slowly replaced connection. They set simple rules. No phones at dinner. Weekly date nights. Real check-ins about feelings, not just schedules. Some nights were still hard. Trust doesn't rebuild instantly. But they kept showing up. One evening, weeks later, they sat on the balcony watching the sunset. I'm glad you told me, Emily said quietly. I was scared, Daniel admitted. I was too, she replied. He reached for her hand. This time, she didn't hesitate. The secret that almost happened didn't define them, but it changed them, because sometimes the most important moment in a marriage isn't when you fall in love, it's when you almost fall away, and choose to come back instead.